Come on, Judy. Well, good morning and welcome to ELEVENSES Live. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. It's Sunday, the 10th of April. This is show number 230, and I'm live today. I was thinking I'd probably have to be a recorded show, but for reasons which I'll explain in a moment, I'm live. You'll also notice I've got a green screen behind me, which is kind of working, but not particularly well. I'll have to sort of think about that and see if it actually functions on this particular setup. In fact, I'm actually going to turn the virtual background off and just go back to the normal. So there it is. Yeah, that's the video's working better, isn't it? Already I can see that. I'm going to have to rethink that. It may not work on this particular system pretty well. Anyway, the reason that I have a green screen behind me was because last night I was actually taking part in the Shiny Side Up online talk series. Basically what happened was I got the schedule from last night's show, and I realized that in fact the training that I actually had booked for this afternoon this morning was going to be a bit of a mission, because I wasn't actually going live on screen till nearly 1:30, and knowing that we'd always going to be running behind schedule with something like this, and after dealing with the post-presentation questions, I had a sneaking suspicion I wouldn't be in bed till well after 2 p.m. and in fact that was the case. So I'd already decided that postponing this morning's training in Kent would probably be a good idea. So yeah, that's what I was involved in yesterday, and what can I say about that? Well, again, the thing that I would say is I can only wish that we had something similar to Shiny Side Up in the UK. Let me just sort of try to run through exactly what it is. Now, Shiny Side Up is a nationwide initiative backed by New Zealand's Accident Compensation Corporation, or the ACC for short. Now, the ACC scheme will seem really weird to us living here in the UK, because it provides accident insurance cover for accidental injuries not only to New Zealand citizens and residents, but also to temporary visitors to New Zealand. Because the key point here is it is the sole and compulsory provider of accident insurance. Now, most ACC claims involve physical injuries caused by accidents, but the scheme does cover some physical conditions. One thing that is quoted on their website, for example, is the result of long-term exposure to substances like asbestos in the workplace. But also some mental conditions such as nervous shock are also covered. Now, importantly, when you make a claim on the ACC, there's absolutely no requirement to show that somebody else was at fault and caused your injury. So the ACC is sometimes described as a no-fault scheme for that reason. So it doesn't matter whether you fell over at home, twisted your knee playing sport, or were injured in a motorcycle crash when somebody failed to give way to you, you will be covered by the ACC. So where do they get their money from? Well, primarily they are funded through a combination of levies and government contributions. Now, And the income thus collected goes into a series of predetermined accounts. And costs relating to an injury are paid out of the relevant account based on the type and cause of the injury. So one of those accounts is the motor vehicle account, and that is currently funded by a levy on petrol, but oddly enough, not on diesel and LPG, and through motor vehicle license fees. I believe the motorcycle levy currently stands at 25 New Zealand dollars. But as the ACC point out, to quote their website, motorcycles account for a disproportionately high percentage of the cost and severity of motor vehicle injuries in New Zealand each year. Although motorcycles only make up 3% of the total number of motor vehicles on the road, crash statistics from the Ministry of Transport show that motorcyclists are 21 times more likely to be killed or severely injured in a crash than a person driving a car. Motorcyclists account for 16% of the motor vehicle account's severe injuries. Funding motorcyclists' accidents is extremely expensive due to the severity of the injuries it sustained. So cross-subsidization within the motor vehicle account means that other vehicle owners' levies make a significant contribution to funding motorcyclists' injuries. So there you have it, basically. If you drive a car, you effectively end up paying for motorcyclists getting hurt. And the ACC say, we do this because if the true cost of motorcycle injuries was reflected in the motorcycle levies, then owning a motorcycle may become prohibitively expensive. Now we know all about the soaring cost of insurance here in the UK. It's gone through the roof for me, and I'm a motorcycle trainer who should, in theory, be at relatively low risk of a collision. And I'm not trying to insure a sort of Ducati or MV hyperbike or anything, just a very ordinary, Yamaha diversion. But my insurance costs have gone up something like 5 times over the last few years. So thanks to the ACC handling injury claims, and rather surprisingly for us in the UK, you'll find that motorcycle insurance isn't actually compulsory in New Zealand, although Ride Forever does point out it has many benefits. You'll be covered not just for accidents, but for theft and certain types of damage too. Well, that would be nice, because right now I can't get theft or damage cover. I just have third-party only insurance. So effectively, I have to pay £500 plus a year at the moment just to get the cover that the ACC give you. So, all right, anyway, moving on. What's Ride Forever? Well, Ride Forever, who put the Shiny Side Up series together, they are an offshoot of the ACC, and they were established in 2009. And the idea of Ride Forever is to give riders sound information and access to training. Now, the rationale in setting up Ride Forever was that there had been a post-90s boom in motorcycling in New Zealand, as there was across a lot of the world, actually. With more people riding, not surprisingly, there were many more crashes, injuries, and fatalities. And one of the target groups was the so-called born again rider, the person who had ridden previously and come back to biking but were lacking recent experience. There's some debate about whether or not that really is the factor that we thought it was some years ago, because it was certainly a concern here. Born again riders were allegedly topping out the accident stats. We're still seeing people writing about that. I think that phenomenon, if it ever existed, is long gone. But anyway, Ride Forever came about because there was a sort of realization within the motorcycle community in New Zealand that conventional safety messaging and programs simply don't resonate with the majority of riders. Think about whether or not you attend the sort of police-led rider safety events that you are scattered up and down the country, and are happening actually right at this moment here in the UK, of course, because we're moving into the spring and the riding season is with us. As the Shiny Side Up website, the Ride Forever website actually puts it, motorcyclists knew their passion involved risk and they accepted it. So Ride Forever actually aims to change the way that schemes like this engage with riders, and they wanted to find schemes that riders would be keen to take up. And that's where I and all the other presenters who've worked with Shiny Side Up, you probably know that Brittany Morrow from the USA has talked about her experiences of recovering from a really serious life-threatening crash. And we have Dr. Chris Hurren as part of the team, who appears regularly updating everybody on the progress of MotoCap and his research into bike clothing and testing. And MotoCap have recently moved on to helmet assessment, and I believe that was what his presentation was at least partially covering last night. As I said, I went to bed at something after 2 a.m. and he'd just come on. There were some technical problems last night, which meant the stream actually froze. But anyway, back in 2018, 2019, when I was actually over in New Zealand, Shiny Side Up was on the road. We visited a dozen different venues in just over 4 weeks the first time round, and I think the total was 15 events the second time round. So there was 5 sort of day-long shows set at weekends and intermediate talk events at different venues between them. They were all pretty well attended, and I have to say, at the end of that sort of 4.5 weeks, I was absolutely knackered after all those events, and riding the bike between them as well, because that was one of the things that we thought would really resonate with the people, is if the presenters actually turn up on motorcycles and prove that they are motorcyclists. So what's happened with the online event? Well, as you probably know, New Zealand's been treating COVID rather more seriously than the UK government's let everybody catch it approach. And so last year's outdoor events were curtailed after just one event, and they set up the online event to compensate. It was a bit of a sort of work in progress. Last night, all was the second of the online shows, because all the outdoor events and indoor events were cancelled earlier this year, just because of the COVID uncertainties. Now, I don't know how many viewers we actually got online last night, and we did have some technical problems. I know that on Facebook, because that's where I was watching it. The stream went out live on Facebook and YouTube, but what I will say is that despite the technical issues it caused the sound to go in and out, I know it caused problems of people listening to my live presentation, and Chrissy's actually went offline mid-stream. But I stayed on line for about 25 minutes, about 45 minutes actually, after my presentation ended. And what I was doing was engaging with people via the comment stream on Facebook. And I have to say that stream was actually buzzing with questions, some to me, a lot more to some of the other presenters who'd been on the show earlier, and with just general feedback and discussion and debate between the various individuals who were obviously watching the event. They all had comments to make on other people's comments. So it really was I would say, a fantastic opportunity for everybody involved in motorcycling to get engaged. We sort of influencers, isn't that a horrible word? I hate it. We influencers can deliver our perspective, our point of view, our advice to riders. But the thing is, we need people to come back at us and tell us what they want as well. And that's very much what happened last night. There was plenty of debate and discussion. Somebody, I mentioned ABS at one point during the talk, and somebody said, why do you need ABS on a small bike? And I said, well, because people fall off small bikes just as often as they fall off big machines. It's not the weight of the machine that matters, it's the circumstances in which you actually trigger the ABS, or rather the lack of it. And I pointed out that one of my life-threatening crashes that I'd had as a rider was on a 250. I'd lost the front end braking when somebody stepped out into the road right in front of me, and I rolled to a halt under the front wheel of a Roadmaster, a Routemaster double-decker bus. I was very, very lucky to survive that. So yeah, if that chitter chatter was an indication of engagement, I say the online event really engaged. And all I can say is, why can't the motorcycle authorities in this country do something similar? Which brings me directly to the first news story of the day. The Motorcycle Industry Association, the MCIA, released a press release which said they had attended a high-level meeting earlier this week with senior Department for Transport officials. And the meeting is said to mark the start of the delivery phase of the MCIA and Zemo Partnerships Action Plan, which is called Realising the Full Potential of Zero Emission Powered Light Vehicles. And the press release duly went on to say it was the first of what will be a series of quarterly meetings to monitor progress against each of the plan's actions with the department. And I have to say the press release was a masterpiece of non-information. As Tony Campbell, CEO of the MCIA, said, today's meeting was a welcome step in the right direction for the PTW industry. We're confident the constructive and collaborative approach with which we are taking the action plan forward with the DfT will stand us in good stead, not only for urban settings in which our vehicles are used, but for the wider sector too, in terms of the role leisure motorcycling can and must play on the road to net zero. We're looking forward to continuing our work with the DfT in realising the full potential of our vehicles as part of this landmark action plan. So lots of words and absolutely no information. The MCIA, let's not forget it, represents the motorcycle industry in this country, and the industry is not always what the motorcycling community wants or even needs. Now, the MCIA is also pushing ahead with what they call the rider community in the development and delivery of this plan, presumably through its involvement with the National Motorcycle Council. And that, of course, is the very same council that told us just a few weeks ago that it wasn't there to represent motorcyclists, but the bodies that represent motorcyclists, if you see what I mean. Right, okay, we have a few comments. Which I'm trying to read at the moment. Jeff said he watched SSU till 2 when they were having outrage. Yeah, okay, catching up on YouTube. Very good. Saw last year's as well. Hope you enjoyed my piece, Jeff, and I hope you found the rerun had sorted the sound problems out. And he also says, interesting, the statistics about the amount of money paid out in bike crashes. Well, that's basically what I have just said, is that the pot for road accidents, general pot, actually funds the repayments for bike crashes. Nick's looked in. Morning, Nick. And Jeff also says it was 900 viewers or so, but it may have gone over that on YouTube. No idea if they were Facebook and YouTube. No, they wouldn't have been. They would have been separate. I do know that much. And given that you know, there are relatively few motorcyclists in New Zealand compared with the UK, I've actually forgotten what the precise figure is, but we have about 1.4 million riders in the UK out of a population of 56 million. I think, if I remember right, the population of New Zealand is about 6 million. So you're looking at hundreds of thousands of riders over there. And that's one of the big things about SSU, is it has actually managed to reach a really, really significant proportion of the riding population. You know, seriously, compare that with the number of people who go to somewhere like the National Exhibition Centre, for example, for a bike show in the UK. You get a far greater number out in New Zealand. Right, okay, so yes, I did mean to put up some banners. You are tuned to Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills. I am live. What was I got? That was the wrong button. That was the button I meant to put up. Goes out on Wednesdays and Sundays, normally live. If you can't watch it live on Facebook, try and catch up here, or you can get me over on my YouTube channel, which is Survival Skills UK. And don't forget, over there I also have the 60-second safety series. Over 70 of them have gone up now. Right, so yeah, so where were we? Yes, MCIA and the plan for sustainable future. Now, as previously reported, Japan's big four bike manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, have actually agreed a standard for swappable batteries for motorcycles. They did that some while ago. And last year, Honda actually became the first of the four to debut its own swappable batteries, which are actually dubbed the Power. Hang on a minute. I've lost myself here for a moment. I've lost the picture. Oh, damn. Oh, there it is. Right. Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can get that up on screen. Yeah. Yes, there we are. So you can see that. Yes. So, okay, these are the Mobile Power Pack E. Now, as I said, they are now moving a step forward. They're forming a new joint company called Gakacho or Chaco. Why do people make up silly names like this? And it's in partnership with a fuel giant called Ineos. Now, the aim, they say, is to change the view of a battery away from a product to battery as a service. So in other words, what they're talking about here is that you will no longer consider a battery as something you go and buy, but the idea, of course, is to get you into the habit of just taking them as a swap. Now, when the company actually launches, it will be working towards its goal of rolling out a battery sharing service, and they hope to have that up and running in major Japanese cities by the autumn of this year. And as I say, it'll initially be run on Honda's Mobile Power Pack E. But interesting, after prepping this story at the end of last week, ready for today, I spotted that one keen-eyed observer had actually noticed that, to quote, the swapping service known as Gachaco looks like a Gogoro setup in costume. Basically, what he's saying is that the battery packs are actually identical to the existing Gogoro setup. And there could be a good reason for that, because Gogoro has actually become the de facto standard. It's now produced over 1 million battery packs. It's spreading quickly across Asia. It's the dominant service in India, China, and Indonesia already. Now, there are other competing battery swap technologies available, including one from Kimco that I mentioned quite recently. But something I commented on in another recent show was the problem of market differentiation. Now, petrol is, give or take a few additives, petrol. Wherever you fill up, the bike will just run on the stuff. And much the same can be said for something like standard batteries. Yes, there are different sizes. You get A's, you get AAA's, and so on. But you can be fairly certain that you can source replacements fairly easily. About the only ones I really have any trouble sort of finding are the sort of little watch batteries that fit in so many things. And that's why I chose my camera. Incidentally, it runs on AA batteries, which means if the battery goes flat, I can just walk into a shop and buy some. Now, contrast that with a lot of other electronic equipment, which now runs on specific battery designs and are charged with specific battery packs. Now, I've lost track of how many item specific chargers I have. There are laptop chargers, there are chargers for sort of power supplies for things like the monitor. Every time you buy a new gadget, it's got a new battery charger attached to it. And I realized yesterday, in fact, that I've accidentally thrown out the charger for my rather expensive Bosch rechargeable screwdriver, because I mistook it for the battery power supply for a dead tool, which I had tossed out there some months ago. So personally, I'd be all in favor of a unified technology that allows you to swap a single type of battery, supplied by all means by a different range of battery suppliers. But regardless of make, when it comes to putting the battery in a bike, I would like to see one design that fits all. Okay, now obviously these batteries are going to be aimed at small sort of urban sort of commuter scooters, maybe small motorcycles, which is fine. Maybe the bigger bikes will need their own built-in power packs a la Zero, where you can't take the battery out, but you just have to live with what it is. But hey ho, that's the way it goes. If you want more power, you're going to have to design something a little bit more complex than a sort of a giant AA battery, which is effectively what these Honda and Gogoro packs are. But where do the Japanese stand? Well, as I said before, I think they're still way behind the curve. The latest I've heard is that Honda is said to have multiple designs in the works. Yamaha has demonstrated some prototypes. Kawasaki says it will have 3 electric motorcycles coming this year, and Suzuki is said to be working on a 125 equivalent electric scooter. Now contrast that with the flood of e-bikes from new startups. Okay, now don't forget, if you do enjoy the show, you can come over to my coffee page. You can buy me a coffee over there, which is greatly appreciated, and you will get access, of course, to my huge back catalogue of old Facebook articles. Dozens are up already. Dozens, hundreds. They're getting on for 800 over there, and you can read most of those for a price for a cuppa. And if you subscribe with a regular cuppa for me, then you get access to more specialist content, and I'm working on improving that section of the archive as well. So Martin has just said, if you have a YouTube link for SSU, I'll love to see it. I'll dig it out and put it in the comments when I'm done, Martin. I've been a bit short of sleep and time this last 12 hours or so, but I'll get that sorted out for you. Thank you. Right, so okay, talking of e-bikes, as I kind of was, I was out on my motorcycle, my petrol powered motorcycle, just the other day, Thursday afternoon in fact, and I pulled up behind a little scooter, which I didn't have the camera on the bike running, unfortunately, because what I looked at on this was there was a sort of an unusual number plate. It was olive green, and when I actually kind of glanced at it, it seemed to have a lot of letters on it. So, you know, I was thinking, this is a bit of a weird number plate. I wonder what country is this from. Without having looked at it too closely, my first thought was maybe it was a Middle Eastern registration plate, because they often are quite cluttered. But as I got closer, I read that what was actually on it, and it said something like this: fully road legal, electrically assisted, pedal powered bicycle, maximum speed 15.5 miles per hour. And I looked at the bike as the lights changed and the rider moved away, and I thought, you're having a giraffe here. It was quite clearly a twist and go scooter, because the rider twisted the grip on the right hand side and sped, well, actually less sped than kind of moved away from the lights, and there was no sign of any frantic foot action going on to pedal the bike to keep up with traffic. So yeah, anyway, it didn't take me too long to actually go on to eBay and find a supplier. And this is what the bike actually looks like. Let me get that up on screen for you. There we go. That's the sort of shape of the bike. And if you look very closely to the sort of beside the rear wheel, you can just see the pedal. You can see the side stand under the bottom of the machine. And as I say, if I zoom in on that, there it is, you can see the pedal. Now, here's what the advertising said, and I've deleted the name of the company. So XXX scooters are ready to go on UK roads. Age restriction of 14 years and are classed as bicycles. This means no road tax, no license required, insurance not legally required, and no MOT or DVLA registration. XXX bikes will appeal to teenagers wanting to ride them to and from school, or for parents who are fed up with driving their kids to school. They're also suitable for drivers who've lost their driving license. XXX bikes are restricted to 15 mph. Just 3 tiny problems. First of all, the one I spotted and tucked in behind was pulling around 20 miles per hour on my speedo, so that's clearly well over the limit. Second, the power is delivered, and I quote the website here, which quite clearly says a twist power hand control. And thirdly, the rider I followed certainly wasn't pedaling. And if you look at the location of those pedals, I'll just zoom out again, you can see that there is no way that you could actually use those pedals. And the other thing is that the crank on those pedals is just literally just about 3 inches. So it's so short that you haven't got the ability to turn the crank and get any kind of drive. It would be nigh on impossible to move that scooter through those pedals. They look like a cosmetic add-on to me, which just sort of hang under the bike and basically look like a set of pedals. I did look for a chain. I couldn't actually see one. And just to confirm that these bikes are actually delivered that way, there is actually a grainy video on the website which shows the rider zipping around a corner on the bike, and there it is. That's the best I could do in terms of a screen capture. But if you look there, you can just see his white trainer. He's absolutely nowhere near either of the pedals. So quite clearly, the rider on the advertising video isn't pedaling the bike, and as I say, the rider I followed wasn't pedaling. So just to confirm that confirms the bikes are actually delivered this way, and they don't need pedaling at all. It's not a conversion that the rider's done. But nevertheless, the advert claims the machines meet EN 1594. Colon 2017 harmonized under machinery directive, it says. What does that mean? Well, that's the European standard for electric bicycles for sure, but what it means is pedal assistance up to a maximum of 25 kilometers per hour and a maximum continuous motor output of 250 watts. But just, in case of any doubt, the standard does say that the output of the motor is progressively reduced and finally cuts off once the pedelec reaches a speed of 25 kilometers per hour, 15.5 miles per hour, or sooner if the cyclist stops pedaling. Now, as my observations and that video clearly show, the rider didn't have to pedal to get moving. He just twisted the throttle. Now, whether he was aware of the bike's legality or not, I really don't know. So I'd be interested to know who supplied the plate and whether or not it was fitted by the supplier. Interestingly, the rider was wearing a helmet and gloves as well as a chunky outer jacket. So my guess is that he may well have been trying to fly below the radar on this one. As I said on Sunday's show, in principle, I'm not averse to the idea of these things on the road, as they clearly fulfill a need for someone who, for some reason or other, isn't physically capable of pedaling a cycle. Somebody maybe has had a knee operation or something like that and hasn't got full movement in the knee. Frankly, if I was in the motorcycle industry, I'd be looking at how to fit these bikes into the broader category of powered two-wheelers. So maybe what we need is a completely new class for these to combine pedelecs and these low-powered electric scooters, maybe to allow them to be ridden minus a license, maybe only after completing a CBT style course, and maybe with compulsory third-party insurance. But I would like to see something like that happen, and maybe just possibly that's something the MCIA and the National Motorcycle Council are actually engaged in with the government. But wouldn't it be nice if we knew? Right, okay. Jeff has just actually found the Shiny Side Up link. That looks like it. So thanks for that, Jeff. Saves me going and hunting around for it. Right, okay. I've actually overrun a bit today, so I'm going to actually just run off with one final story, and then I'll finish. I'll put the discussion point up on Wednesday, I think. East Devon are the latest area to run a motorcycle awareness weekend. It kicks off tomorrow, Monday, April the 11th, and it runs till Sunday. Now, rather than police, this scheme is run by Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service, who hope that their week of action can help reduce the number of riders killed and injured in motorcycle crashes by giving bikers advice on riding safely and reducing their chance of being in a collision. Now, as you probably know, I've been a long-time supporter of Biker Down since I was one of the team that actually created the original pilot scheme down in Kent, and that was who I put the Science of Being Seen module together. And despite having been somewhat unceremoniously dumped by Kent Fire and Rescue, I still say that Biker Down is a great example of the kind of engagement that I think can genuinely deliver valuable advice and information to all riders. So don't be put off if you think it's a sort of a sort of an official sounding thing to do. Don't think it is. If you go along onto their biker down sessions, which are running free down in Devon, Somerset, of course, you'll get 3 hours of really practical advice. It's potentially life-saving stuff. The accident scene management item is worth its weight in gold, because most people sort of their heads fall off when they see an accident. They have no idea what they're supposed to do. Just sitting through the 40-odd minutes of that particular part of the presentation is worth it alone, before you even move on to the first aid section, which is again a really, really useful element of that particular initiative. And then there is the final accident prevention module, what science of being seen used to do. They now have a new video called Thinking Rider, which I'm still waiting to find out exactly how much of my material is actually incorporated in that. I did have a discussion with the guy who put it together, only to be told that he couldn't use it. So, but looking at the content list, it does in fact look like an awful lot of science of being seen is in there. So if you do go along and do biker down and you watch Thinking Rider, I'd just be nice if you just ask the question: how much of this is based on science of being seen? All right, okay, that is it for today. So Jeff says they had to assist the pedals and could. Yes, absolutely right. That's just what I said. That's exactly the law. The pedals are the main means of propulsion. The motor is an assist, not the other way around. Yeah, Jeff said he did biker down 3 years ago. Thank you for your comments today, Jeff. Thank everybody else. Thanks to you for looking in. I hope you've enjoyed the today's show. It's been a bit of a short one, as I said, and I've left off the discussion section today because I'm basically knackered and I'm going to go and have some breakfast. So thanks awfully for looking in, and if you are riding today, please stay shiny side up.